to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice long
Welcome
hair,
back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube. And always rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. What is going on? Draft Guide version 3.0 is out right now. Make sure to download it. Link down in the description. And we're just going to keep on getting more and more draft profiles out for you, the people. So I hope you're enjoying it. I hope that you're liking it out there. So make sure to click that. Make sure to favorite the link because the link should stay the same from here until draft day and even after draft day. So you can see who the Bears pick and also have more of those draft profiles. Also, if you will, please help out the show. Click subscribe down below and join us on our quest to 5,000 subscribers. 90% of you are not subscribed. Make sure to click that button. But today we're going to be talking about some of these mock or these rumors that are going around the NFL because it's draft season. So that means draft smoke screens, draft rumors galore. We're going to be breaking it all down today. So some of the rumors that were coming out from some insiders from some analysts from the Big Ten. And then we talk about Peter Schrager and Field Yates, what they think the Bears are going to be doing at that number 9 pick and who they mocked that the Bears would end up drafting. So with that, let's get into this. To the biggest news of this really came out more so yesterday, but some of the big news that I just want to cover, all this Marvin Harrison Jr. hype out there. Now, Marvin Harrison Jr., we've talked about before. This guy, to me, is one of the best wide receivers I've ever scouted. And he's just a pure wide receiver. Now, there's all this hype. And why is there hype that the Bears might get Marvin Harrison Jr.? Now, leading up to yesterday, the big hype was that more and more people started mocking that the Bears would trade up for Marvin Harrison Jr. at the 4th pick, at the 5th pick. Lots and lots of different people had the Bears picking Marvin Harrison Jr. So naturally, we all start getting super excited about this, going, this is freaking Marvin Harrison Jr. Because to me, he's still head over heels above everybody else that's one of these wide receivers. Like, I think Odunze's very good. I think Neighbors is very good. But Marvin Harrison Jr., to me, I've said this since day one, he just looks like an NFL veteran that's playing college football. The way that he uses his hands just to create separation, not at the line of scrimmage, but just naturally, like these veteran moves where he just kind of drops his hand off. And he's seen as one of the best. Steve Smith was just raving about him. People are saying, and even Marvin Harrison Sr. was saying, this guy's even better than me. Brian Hartline on the radio, he was asked that his top 3 wide receivers he's ever coached. Without question, he said Marvin Harrison Jr. is number 1. And then he thought about number 2 and thought about number 3. It just shows how freaking good he is compared to everyone else. He is just unbelievable. And that's where we saw the hype getting more and more, like more Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Bears hype. But then yesterday, there was a rumor, big rumor that comes out, and it came from Joey Christopoulos. He is an analyst from the for the Big Ten, and I believe he's from the Believe Network. And so not a huge name out there, but someone that is connected in the Big Ten. And he said on about Marvin Harrison Jr., saying, I've talked to a few people and I've tried to get it confirmed. At the time Marvin Harrison was blowing off his pro day, he was just not showing up. What I have kind of been told, and this is not confirmed, is that Marvin Harrison wants to play for the Chicago Bears. He proceeded to talk a little bit more how he's tanking his draft stock and how he might not get to 9, but he said, I'm not saying he'll fall to number 9, but if J.J. McCarthy goes at 4, I think there could be a deal with the Chargers at number 5. The value is probably going to be next year's Panthers' 2nd or the Bears' own 2nd-round pick. And that's actually what some are saying is it would probably be a 2nd and maybe like a 4th. It might ultimately end up being if they wanted to trade up to the number 5 spot. Now, first question, for you, the people, would you do that? Would you trade, let's just say, the 1st round pick this year, number 9, all the way up to number 5, for next year's second and a 4. To me, that's enough. And I think that's good, especially if you're getting Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's that good. I would rather have him, even though the other wide receivers are great. I think that he's just that next level Pro Bowl player right off the get-go. But I want to talk a little bit more about this whole rumor, how he's tanking his draft stock and other pieces like that. Now, I think that this is what we've seen kind of come up, where me as someone who is a podcaster and does this just on the side and just kind of talks about my Chicago Bears and reports some of the news, you see this a lot more where people do have inside information. I know that I have some inside information at times, but the thing that I just want to call out is when he did report this, if you listen to it, the guy does not come off very confident in this too. And you even read the quote, and it's what I have kind of been told, and this is not confirmed. And at the very beginning, I've been trying to get this confirmed, right? This reminds me of high school when a girl likes you and your friend comes up to you and is like, dude, I really think that this one girl might like you. And you're like, oh, that's cool. And you want to believe it. And you're like, this is awesome. But you just said, I think I might, and it kind of might. And you're not saying a lot of words of confirmation out here. And I don't mean to, I'm not trying to discredit or anything like that. I just don't know. I don't feel fully I want to like it and I want to believe it. And I do think that him not participating in this is tanking his draft stock compared to the other wide receivers that are out there, because there's probably people that say, I don't know who he is, and he hasn't met with us. Because another one of the big pieces, as part of the Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Bears hype, he's only met with 2 teams, the Cardinals and the Chicago Bears. So this might, if you look at this with Bear goggles on, you go, wait a minute, he loves the Bears. But then on the flip side, it's, well, the Cardinals, it might be a Caleb Williams situation. The Cardinals might be like, listen, you're the guy, we're taking you. So to me, I think just overall, it's fun. And I'm not saying that he's lying. I feel like he has sources that are probably like, yeah, I think that he wants to play for the Bears. And I think that these are factual, he's probably here. He's definitely hearing these things. But do I buy too much stock in it? Probably not so much, because I still feel like the Bears might want to trade back. But hey, if the Bears walk away with Marvin Harrison Jr., I will not be complaining, unless they trade a first-round pick next year with the number 9 pick, which they might have to do in order to move up and get this talented wide receiver. So let's talk about the other insiders out there, Peter Schrager and Field Yates. So Peter Schrager released his first ever mock draft. And the reason why this is so important, I'm a big fan of Peter Schrager. This guy is very connected across the NFL landscape. Even the NFL conspiracy theorists don't like Peter Schrager because they say that he has the script and that's how he keeps predicting things correctly. So Peter Schrager he's kind of like the new Mike Mayock. When Mike Mayock would release a mock draft, you go, this guy knows something. But he doesn't just do one, he just releases it later and then he'll give another update. But Peter Schrager dropped his mock draft, and something that was interesting was the Bears traded back from the number 9 spot when they had Malik Neighbors on the board, and they traded back to the Indianapolis Colts. Indianapolis ended up sending the Bears a future second-round pick in order to move 6 spots. So Bears move back to 15 and get a second-round pick next year. So my question to you, the people, would you do this deal? Would you trade just to move 6 spots back for next year's second? My take, I would rather have this year's second, just because we already have a second next year. Now, I know that the Bears like to trade those, but I like the idea of at least getting the second this year so that you have more draft capital. But also, would you do this if Malik Neighbors is on the board? And this brings up a good, interesting talking point, because if there is a wide receiver like Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors, there is a chance that the Bears trade back. Why? Because wide receiver is very valuable, and these top 3 wide receivers are very valuable. Now, the interesting part about wide receiver is this is a deep wide receiver class. You can get a lot of these great players, but the elite talent is the top 3 players, especially a Malik Neighbors. So that's what's super interesting about this is, trading out and getting capital. And that's why, to me, I would rather have this year's second round pick if you're giving up the chance to have a Malik Neighbors-esque wide receiver to throw into your wide receiving core. But who we had the Bears drafting, this was interesting. I really haven't seen this being mocked to the Bears. Bears also just met with this person they're meeting with J.C. Latham out of Alabama. So ultimately at pick 15, Bears draft J.C. Latham, tackle out of Alabama. And trading back and then getting this tackle, it's weird. It's a weird vibe to me, ultimately, if the Bears were to go with this. Now, I don't know what you guys all think. To me, I'm not a big fan of this. And this is where, like, okay, well, Bears want to get might want an offensive lineman. We know how much Ryan Poles digs offensive linemen. And also you would set the offensive line for the future. Now, the thing that I don't like about this is Troy Fautanu out of Washington is still available, and Byron Murphy is still available, the defensive tackle, and Jared Verse is still available too. And J.C. Latham, I'm not low on him, but I'm not high on him. The offensive tackle out of Alabama, 6'6", 342. And I think next episode I can talk more about my top 10 offensive tackles. This guy has some really good hand technique out there, but ultimately to me, how many offensive linemen recently from Alabama have been successful? And when I see this guy, he's got some very, very just thundering feet out there. Like, he's just very heavy-footed, like he's lead-footed when he goes back in his stances. Now, the guy is a giant. He's 340. I think people were saying he might have been playing all the way at 360. So he is a large man, but the way that he moves his feet, I don't think it's fluid. It's not like how Darnell Wright is super, super fluid. And that's the thing with J.C. Latham. Also, too, the thing that gets me nervous, J.C. Latham is also a very highly penalized player. And he does seem to get, he was actually one of the more highly penalized players in all the NCAA. And also, he's someone that does make some big mistakes. So, yet again, he's still my tackle 5. But this is just trading back and getting him. I'm not necessarily in love with that. But I know that some other people are super, super high on J.C. Latham. So some people might be obsessed with this. J.C. Latham, I'm just not a huge fan of what he can do. But the only other piece that I want to bring up, he did play some right guard as well at Alabama. So maybe more of a right guard. But yet again, pick 15 for a right guard might be a little bit too rich for me, especially because, okay, what are they going to do with Nate Davis? That's something that we do have to consider. But one other piece from Peter Schrager's mock draft that I thought was interesting, Jackson Powers Johnson not being drafted in the first round. And and Zach Frazier, center out of West Virginia, being the first center off the board. So we have more news, and this is the last little piece with Field Yates. So Field Yates and Peter Schrager ended up actually having a mock draft, kind of like a little mini dueling mock draft where they kind of selected the different players. They went through and just kind of did this dueling mock with Field Yates and Peter Schrager. Now, the draft starts out with Caleb Williams, obviously, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, then J.J. McCarthy to the Giants, Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Chargers, Rome Odunze to the Cardinals, Malik Neighbors to the Saints. The Saints trade up, and then Dallas Turner to the Falcons. So at pick 9, they have the Bears selecting Troy Fautanu, tackle/guard, out of Washington. And that to me was also weird because now you have two different mock drafts saying that, okay, yet again, these are two insiders that are highly plugged in. Both of them saying Bears going offensive line. When Latu was on the board, I don't like it because Joe Alt was on the board. If you're going to go offensive line, at least go Joe Alt, right? Come on. But you look at that too, and it's just, there's other players, Byron Murphy, Jared Verse. Like we've said, a lot of these players that we've mocked to the Bears were still available, and ultimately the Bears end up going offensive line again. Now, this, even though that I have Fautanu ranked lower, he's my tackle number 7. I'm actually fairly low on Fautanu because I see him more as a guard. Watching him play, he looks like if you had a guard and you ran out of tackles and you just move him out there. Now, he has crazy long arms, but I still don't really buy that he would necessarily be a tackle. He doesn't feel like a tackle. And he's very overly aggressive, and that's why I kind of bumped him down. The tape that I saw, I just don't feel like that might fly at the NFL level, where he puts himself out of position. He's very, very athletic. He's crazy athletic. But that's just some of the downsides. But I think ultimately why I like Fautanu for the Bears, even more so than a Latham, is because I like that you can put him at your left tackle, and you can have him and Braxton Jones at least duke it out at left tackle, and whoever loses, move them to left guard. Because I think Fautanu projects best as left guard, and then you can move Tevin Jenkins over to right guard, and then Nate Davis, you have enough cap space that you can cut him, and after you cut him, I think you save like $1 million or so, which is not great because then someone else is going to be making $1 million to take the spot, so it's kind of just a wash. But I think ultimately you have the cap space to do something like this. So if they are going to take someone, I'd rather have a Fautanu out of Washington because of I think that he's more of a guard. And I think he could be a really good guard. And I think that the fact that he can compete at tackle and loser goes to guard, I really like that for the Bears because no matter what, you're going to be having your best 5 players out there. I think it could be a very interesting situation because if you put him at guard, it doesn't mean he's going to permanently be a guard. So I just don't like that they didn't trade back. That's the thing. That's my biggest piece with it is I wish you would have traded back, but I thought that it was interesting, and that's what I wanted to bring up to you, the people, just the hype around the Bears potentially drafting an offensive lineman. Are you a fan of it? Are you not? Let me know down below in the comments if you're watching out there, because tomorrow or the day after that, I'm going to put together my top 10 offensive tackles and really kind of break this down to say, here are the offensive tackles that I do like. I have been more down on the Bears drafting an offensive tackle, so I want to kind of clear it up and talk about the tackles that I do love, that if they are drafted at 9, I would really like them to actually draft one at 9, but I'll just bring up the ones that I would want to see. So if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube and rate the show 5 stars. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and